Yes, once again, we are live here with the Reentry Connect podcast, continuing purpose with my big homie, Gerald Lee. Yes,
What's up? What's
indeed.
up?
Another one. Yes, another big story, how he overcame. Sometimes us, just in general, sometimes we just get off into the wrong track. Even though we may have had a good upbringing, we may have, been through little things in life, but then sometimes those things will land us in predicaments that we start regretting in life. However, another story that's going to inspire, that's going to bring awareness, and that's going to definitely motivate other individuals to do better. Here it was somebody spent time in prison, but they turned their lives around and they started businesses, they started different organizations and helping the community. So before I get started, just want to say shout out to GPStransportation.net 215-774-9913. Again, if you want a 5-star transportation company, if you're flying into Philadelphia or any of the surrounding airports, if you need wheelchair accessory or any type of transport you need, they're available and accessible and ready for you to have a good service for. One another shout out to Mel Wells, One Day at a Time. He actually has a good resource center, resource support, reentry support, recovery support, all of the above. So if you need somebody to tap into these great resources, feel free to contact that number on the screen. Shout out to Mel Wells. But without further ado, back to my old head, Mr. Gerald Lee. Appreciate having you. And I know that, I know we had some little technical difficulties, but it's all good.
It's all
I
good.
appreciate you coming on here to share your story. I know you got the books over bars. That's a very powerful movie. But I want you to go ahead and share with the people, man. Like, how was your upbringing and the things you've been through? Just give a little introduction to yourself, and I want you to share that story, and how you landed to where you are now today.
Well, okay. First off, I can't do that without acknowledging you. I've been watching you for a while.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate what you're doing. Uh, Big round of applause, big salute to you, man, for what you're doing and bringing everybody together and talking about the reentry movement and everything. So I couldn't get into my story without giving you your flowers, man. So appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm Gerald Lee. I grew up in the military setting. I'm a military a brat. Originally born in Pennsylvania, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and for the most part, I grew up around every ethnicity that you can think of, and I've had every opportunity as a kid that you can think of, and where I started going down the wrong road is this. I had an older brother. His name is Tony Lee. He is currently in prison as we speak, serving a life sentence.
Wow. Sure.
And I continue to tell parents this, that my brother was my role model. That's the one who I looked up to. But my older brother didn't have the knowledge that he needed from whoever raised him to divert me from the streets. All he did was glorify. So no matter how much I had, no matter how much my parents afforded me, that was the route I was going to take because I seen my mentor do it. So I spent a lot of my years traveling around the world in sports, just being a kid. And I think by the time I turned 15, I turned to the streets and never looked back.
Wow. Wow. Now, quick question. Now, you said, so you came up good household, military household,
Great
family
household.
in the army. You're traveling. You're based in different parts of the world, and all of a sudden, you just turn to the streets. Now, what happened and what made you do that?
First, it is very much my decision to turn to the streets. I don't ever blame anything on my older brother, but he did influence me heavily. And I've always been told, and I do believe that it takes a village to raise a child. And this particular point in my life, I needed my older brother to say, no, this isn't what you want. And I didn't get that, you know. On the other hand, I don't want to discredit my mother or my father. They steered me in the right direction. They broke their necks and backs to steer me in the right direction. But I think ultimately who I looked up to, that's who I was going to listen to at the time. And so once I got old enough to understand the dynamics of the streets, how to sell dope, you know, how to really soak up the game that was given to me in the streets. By the time I was able to soak that up, I was in too deep.
Wow.
I was already, there was no turning back.
Gotcha. So you got in, you said you got in, you know, too deep. So it was no turning back. Now, at what age did you know that eventually you knew you was going to land in the penitentiary, either way or another?
Well, I went to juvenile when I was 14 years old. I did a time in Shelby County Training Center in Memphis, Tennessee. I did fed time there. And I don't think you really realize that you're going to go to prison.
Wow.
You don't realize that you're going to prison. Your actions don't outweigh or the consequences, excuse me, don't outweigh your actions at that time. And nobody says, well, I know I'm gonna go to prison. At least I didn't. So no, I didn't know. I thought I can, you know, escape prison, so to speak.
Gotcha. So you thought you could escape it. So you thought you were invincible. Wasn't nothing going to happen. You was making a bunch of money, you know, which a lot of people, you know, pretty much do, you know, when they're in the streets. And then it happens. It happens. So what led up to that point? How was life, and what allowed you to be thrown behind bars?
So as a young adult, I experienced a lot of different trades as far as like the streets go. I sold a little dope. You know, did whatever I had to do in the streets. What led me to prison was actually robbery, and I've never robbed anyone in my life. And this might be the first time that I ever expressed why I went to prison for robbery. I was at a point in my life to where I was really lost. I had a daughter who was staying with me. I had her on my own, and she was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and she stayed with me for a year, right? And so I ended up giving her back to her mom. And that was something that I didn't plan to do. I knew that one day I had to, but it was something that I didn't plan to do. And so while I had my daughter, my life was straight as an arrow. I quit my street activities. I got a job. I had the job for as long as I ever had a job. And I think once I gave that responsibility back, I didn't have any more direction. I went back to the only thing that I knew. And I wasn't engaging in any type of street activity, so my money was low. And there was a guy, rest in peace, he died in prison. He went to prison with me. He passed away. He presented a robbery in another town. And my money was funny. My money was funny at the time. So his influence on me to do whatever he was doing was real strong because I wasn't right. I quit selling dope. I quit doing whatever I had to do to make ends meet. I quit my job after I, let my daughter go. So I went on a robbery with him, and it didn't turn out the way we thought it was going to turn out.
Wow.
So not having no direction, not having no patience. Like I said, my consequences at that time did not outweigh my actions.
Mhm.
I wasn't thinking about prison. I was thinking about tomorrow or the next hour, or I need some money right now.
Mm.
And so I ended up receiving 30 years, a 30-year prison term because of that.
Wow. So they
Right.
throwing you away just like that for something so.
Well, no, not just that. My entire life was spent incarcerated. Since the time I was 15 years old, I don't believe I stayed out of jail longer than maybe a year or two. So I've accumulated a bunch of charges before I got
Yeah.
to prison. And if you read my if you read my book, I decided to start my book off with my sentencing.
Wow.
Um,
Hold up. So you
where
you started your book before you was even sentenced?
well, no, I started my book Finding Purpose with my sentencing, with the contents of my sentencing, where the judge was telling me about
Oh, okay, okay.
right. And I'll never forget it. He told me that, I see you're in here for robbery, but there's a lot of guys that come in here with these type of cases that never been in any trouble, and I can see giving them probation. And he was like, it looks like here, Mr. Lee, you've been having trouble since you were 17. And he read all my charges that I accumulated since I was 17 years old, and he really thought long and hard about what he was going to give me. Um, but I don't think he could let it slide. I don't think he could bring himself to give me anything less than 30 years. And
Wow.
I wasn't mad at him.
Wow. So what was going through your mind at that time? Did you think you was going to change your life at that point, or did you just focus on doing a straight 30 years?
Um, when I went to prison, funny you asked me that. I didn't know what I didn't know what I was gonna do. They were sending me to the biggest uh, prison in Texas, one of the prisons that were designed for people just like me. So I honestly couldn't tell you what I was. I just wanted to survive. I wanted to make it out of prison before I get killed or any of my family members die. But I did not start straightening up until about my fifth or sixth year in prison.
Wow. Which
It
tip
took
was
me
which usually?
it took
Yeah,
me
that's
five
correct.
years to bump my head.
That's it. That's it. That's how it usually is. And
Uh-huh.
once you bumped your head, what did you figure out that you had to do with your life in order to make things better for your future?
Uh, you know, going into prison and seeing different groups of people all in one setting, uh, it really made me understand that I didn't grow up the way I didn't. My situation was not as bad as I thought it was. Uh, I actually seen people do some crazy things in prison, and it wasn't till I looked at them and I told myself that's not me.
Mm.
What they're doing is not me. And so I had a long talk with myself, and I had to make a decision, and the decision was this:
Yeah.
either you can stay in here with these people, right? It's real simple. Either you can stay in here with these people, or you can do whatever it takes to get out of prison. And I learned that I had to shift what I thought was real,
Uh-huh.
because a lot of the things that go on in society, as a productive member of the society, they have no room in prison. And the rules and regulations that are in prison, they have no room in society. So
Mm.
I had to tell myself, okay, well, there's going to be things that are presented to you that you're going to have to overlook because the main focus is to get out of here. And that was a struggle for me because you want to address everything. You want to put somebody in their place. You want to, you don't want to seem like the weakest link, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of things that I had to end up swallowing, you know, beef with people, altercations, misunderstandings. I had to swallow some of that. I had to toss and turn in my bed at night behind that. And once I started doing that and reaping the benefits of not being in trouble, able to see my mom through contact visit, because, once you, catch a case in prison, they like to take away your contact visits, your phone calls and things like that. So once I started realizing that it's a good reward when you do the right thing, I just kept going. I got stronger and stronger, and my good decisions just kept piling up, and I started leaning on that.
Gotcha. So what type of things did you begin to do? Did you start writing a book? Did you decide you wanted to start a business when you got out? And what type of things did you start doing, that transformed your mind?
It was in there I started going to, I entertained college. And the reason why I entertained college was because there was a unit that was 30 minutes away from my house called the Hughes unit. And the only way that you can get there is through getting your bachelor's degree.
Oh, wow.
Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I was going to go back to school or even, we're talking about college.
Yeah.
We're talking about hours and hours of studying and memorization and statistics and calculus. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wanted to get close to home.
You wanted to get closer to home.
And so I applied for college.
Wow.
And that was my turning point. And I ended up getting my associate's degree and halfway through my bachelor's degree before I made parole. But that was my turning point. Yes, sir.
Wow. So you started applying. So you applied for college while you were in there. You had no degree whatsoever before you went.
Barely got my high school diploma.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here it was. You went back to school to get your diploma, and then you also obtained a bachelor's degree while you were incarcerated.
Right.
Wow. So then, how many years did you have left after you had obtained your bachelor's degree in prison?
Well, I'm halfway through. So when I got to the Hughes unit, I started taking classes. When you're in prison and something happens, it's called like they'll lock you down, or they'll cancel school, or they'll shut the whole system down. So when I got there, I started my classes, but it took me a little. I couldn't get it as fast as I was supposed to because they would lock the unit down for fights or stabbings or anything. So it took me a while to even get halfway through my bachelor's degree, and by the time I looked up, it was time for me to go home.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. So you did a whole 30 years straight?
I did 16 years straight.
16.
So in Texas, when you have an aggravated case, with a weapon or anything like that, you have to do half of your time before you're considered for parole. And so when I came up for parole, I made parole.
On your first shot?
First shot.
Wow. So now when you went home, was that a challenge for you at the beginning? Did you have an idea if you wanted to start a business or a nonprofit or anything? Or did you just go with the punches?
I knew that I was going to begin a nonprofit. I named it in prison, Books Over Bars. It was in prison where I found purpose. So I started preparing myself for when I got out to cater to my new purpose. I wasn't going to be locked up for 15 years and not do something with it. So I started my nonprofit as soon as I got out. My mother, Renee Tillman, helped me with that. She inspired me as well to start my nonprofit, but she got me going. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until maybe last May where I began my LLC, Creating Avenues for Everyone, which is a prison service where we do legal work, pen pal service, you name it. Any service that you need for a prisoner, that's what my business is all about.
Wow.
But as soon as I got out, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to mentor youth, um, not only youth, but people that were in my position that are still lost. So as soon as I got out, I started my nonprofit.
Wow. So the nonprofit, what was the name of your nonprofit?
The name of my nonprofit is Books Over Bars.
Books Over Bars. And if
Right.
people wanted to contact you through email, how would they contact you?
Booksoverbars254@gmail.com.
Okay. So now that service is pretty much based where you're located, or is that a nationwide thing?
It's where I'm located. So every year, I end up doing something for the youth and for the community, and I also
Where are you located?
Coppers Cove, Texas,
So you're in Texas. So this is
Central
definitely
Texas.
based in Texas.
Right.
Wow. So you were from Pennsylvania, you moved all around the country, then you landed in Texas,
Right.
did time out there, but then now changed your life, got a bachelor's degree, opened up a nonprofit. Like, that's amazing stuff right there.
Hmm.
So what type of goals do you have now that you established yourself? And you've been out for how many years now?
5 years, February 7th of this year.
Wow, congratulations,
I
congratulations.
appreciate that. I
So
appreciate that.
now, as far as work is concerned, now are you full blown in your nonprofit, or are you doing other things as well?
Um, um, I also run my business, Creating Avenues for Everyone, and I'm doing a follow up from my first book, Finding Purpose, which you can find on Amazon. Gerald Lee, Finding Purpose. I'm doing a follow up book on that as well. So I got all my irons in the fire.
Okay, so you
I'm
said Gerald. So what was the name of your book again?
Finding Purpose.
Finding Purpose by Gerald Lee. Y'all go and
You can look
support him.
on
Finding
Amazon.
Purpose. Very
Yes, sir.
powerful on Amazon.
Yes, sir.
If I had the link, I would drop the link, but you could always drop the link in the chat afterwards as well.
Absolutely.
So you're a published author. You have a nonprofit. Top of that, you have your bachelor's degrees. Then you're doing a lot of other things. Um, so, question: what if people were listening right now from a prison cell or recovery house, transitional housing, or somewhere? What type of motivational or motivating things can you say, or what type of tips could you give them if they wanted to change their life in such a fashion as yours?
Um, to be to be to be honest with you, my mother always told me if you do right, you get right. Um, I like to look at life like the GPS, right? They didn't have GPS before I was incarcerated, and so what I notice about the GPS is you when you're lost, you'll hear a voice that says proceed to the root. And if I could give any advice, when you find yourself in a low place, in a place of no direction, just keep going straight. And then when you do hear that inner voice that tells you to proceed to the root, um, get back on track. And when you do hear the words, proceed to the root, just know that you're somewhere, that you don't have no business being, uh, and it might lead you down a road that you don't necessarily want to be down. So, I just encourage people to follow the straight and narrow and follow your mind, do the right thing. Anything else is just really uncivilized. Um, Prison is not an option. There's so many avenues and outlets that can help you for what. And that's another thing that I noticed in the year 2024. There are so many avenues and outlets and resources that can help you get to where you need to be. I don't care what situation you're in. So, trust in your higher power and believe in yourself, and know that doing the right thing will pay off.
Absolutely. Yeah, we really appreciate that because, you never know who you can touch, especially with these messages. We've been having a lot of powerful stories here with, just in general, where people were being motivated, they're being inspired, especially like some people are authors. Like I'm an author myself. Got another book coming out pretty soon as well. And a lot of people, yeah, thank you. A lot of people like literally, they get motivated by those type of things. And again, that's what the Reentry Connect podcast, that's what this is all about. It's about motivating, bringing awareness, sharing different resources, showing a lot of the success, versus all the failures and things like that people always want to speak on and highlight. However, there's a lot of us that came out and really transformed our lives. There's some that may have louder voices than others. However, why sit on that testimony when you can let the world know of how good you've been, of how good, that you've come, how far you've become, how much of an impact you've made on people's lives. I'm quite sure there's probably a lot of people here on the East Coast that they may not even heard of you, but they heard of you tonight. You know what I mean? Like, wow, this brother has something over in Texas. There may be some people maybe moving over to Texas that may want to plug in and figure out some different resources, which is a great thing. And that's what all of this is about, It's never just, I'm just going to stay locally and everything like that. As you mentioned earlier in your story, you said you've been brought up around all types of nationalities. Same with me. Like I've been brought up around all types of nationalities. A lot of people love my mother because my mother was very integrating. She was really, she loved to bring people together, from different cultures and things like that. And that's what I believe, because even when you're dealing with reentry, you're not just dealing with one sector of people. You're not just dealing with one type of culture. No, a lot of people are behind bars. I don't care if you're black, white, Puerto Rican, blue, yellow, Korean, whatever the case may be. Everybody struggles with this some type of way. So that's the reason why it's good to get different perspectives. As always, I always say that. Listen to everybody. Listen to different, backgrounds. Everybody may adjust to things differently. Some went through other things than others, So it's definitely a powerful thing. But we thank you a lot for sharing.
Absolutely.
And so if you could say again what your organization is again, and how can they contact you?
My organization is Books Over Bars, it's youth mentorship, booksoverbars254@gmail.com. My book, which is a great book, and it talks about my struggles as well as dealing with people that are incarcerated. Finding Purpose, Gerald Lee, Finding Purpose. It's on Amazon. Go get it. Check it out. You can even contact me on newleader254@gmail.com for any questions, any concerns, for youth mentorship. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool. And Mr. Joe, we really appreciate you coming on here. And I know without further ado, we just definitely coming to an end of the show, but it's definitely been a blessing. Again, it's me, Keenan Hudson. I'm your host here with the Reentry Connect podcast. Mr. Joe Lee, we definitely look to having you here in the near future. We can definitely share more and build a lot more, with a lot of wisdom, understanding, and things like that, which is a good thing.
Hey, I look forward to it, man.
Absolutely. And another shout out back to gpstransportation.net. Appreciate y'all. I'm telling you, 5-star transportation company, City of Philadelphia. Any type of transport you need, even if you need 15 passengers, 12 passengers, wheelchair accessible vans, party buses, whatever, feel free to contact them. Mention Reentry Connect podcast, and yes, you will get a special rate. A couple of individuals had informed me they did get special rates, so I appreciate everybody tuning in and really trusting my word. Shout out to Old Dad One Day at a Time, Mr. Mel Wells at 215-226-7860. A great resource center, great reentry support, also great rehabilitation and drug rehab resource center as well. Feel free to contact them. A lot more coming with them as well, so y'all stay tuned. But without further ado, I'm your host, Keenan Hudson, the Reentry Connect podcast. Continuing Purpose with Mr. Gerald Lee. Mr. Gerald Lee, we appreciate you. And until next time, hey,
yes, sir.
everybody have a good one. We appreciate it.
You too.